Hello, I'm Joolz Sparks,
And I'm Hilaire.
and
And together,
together we make
London
London
Undercurrents.
Undercurrents. So the book is divided into sections because as we were writing, we realised, even though we were working independently, that our poems sort of naturally themed themselves and also provided a narrative running through the book of the fact that some things have changed for women through the centuries and quite a lot of things have stayed the same. So we felt strongly there should be themes in the book.
At the beginning of each section, there's two fragments. So this page has a little illustration of the river, and then on the top is a fragment from the north, and on the bottom one from the south. So we felt that we wanted to have something of ourselves in the book. These are like little vignettes, perhaps, of our experiences of living in London and some of the themes that we're exploring in the poems.
At the back of the book, we've included notes about each of the poems, including any historical facts about the women, whether they're real women, the times that they were living in, and also our personal involvement in that part of the area in which we live, because we've got such strong connections to each area. We're going to read 3 poems each from the collection, dotting around between north and south side. Included in that will be some of the fragments that we've written to, which are pieces of prose slash poetry that appear north and south of the river at the start of each section of the book. This fragment comes in section 9 to 5, and this is for any woman who's worked in an office. We took office jobs, boardrooms, smashed avocados, ceilings. I live very close to Arsenal, Emirates football stadium, and I was always aware that there was a women's team, and I just automatically assumed that they played in Emirates Stadium. It wasn't until I was researching for our book that I discovered no, they don't at all. They play at Boreham Wood, Meadow Park, which is a much smaller venue, and it's always been considered that they wouldn't pull in the crowds, and you know, they exist, but we don't really talk about them. That has thankfully changed during the time that I've lived here. Women's football is on telly. They've been supported by key industry icons, like David Beckham supported the women's football. Unfortunately, during the outbreak of the pandemic, women's football has been sidelined again for now. I'm hoping this isn't a taste of things to come, that it will come back. This is Permitted to Play, Arsenal Football Stadium, Home End, 1991. Dad, when I grow up, I will be first division, midfield, score the winning goal. On this turf, Arsenal Stadium, Gillespie Road. Teacher says I'm better than the boys. Dad, I can beat them on this pitch, with you and Mum eating hot dogs in the red seats, waving scarves. On telly, they only show the men's. Dad, when can I play for Arsenal? When?
I'm going to read the fragment from the first section of the book, which is called Paved with Gold. Battersea crept up on me. The soil got under my fingernails, into my lungs. And now I'm going to read a poem that came about from research I did about, I heard that there was a cycling craze in the summer of 1895, particularly amongst upper and middle class women, and one of their favourite places to come and practice what was then seen as quite a risque activity was Battersea Park. It was also a very sociable activity, so they would meet for breakfast or lunch or afternoon tea, as well as cycling around the park. And I wondered what it must have been like to, because at that time, for working class people, bicycles were out of their reach. So I wondered what it must have been like serving teas and lunches to these wealthier women who had the privilege of being able to go for a ride round Battersea Park. All she desires. Refreshment kiosk, Battersea Park, summer 1895. A girl can dream. She can dream all day while serving teas and clearing tables and taking orders from ladies wilting pleasantly under shady trees, their covetable bicycles propped and resting after so many circuits round the park. A girl can dream of how many miles she'd ride, out to Richmond and beyond, into countryside and sootless air. How boundless then her horizons. So off you go, ladies, refreshed, aglow, tootling blithely to your Mayfair homes. This girl has to hoof it up the junction, weary of limb and longing for her very own freedom machine. Sandwiched between Little Sis and Big 'Un, a girl can dream of spokes and pedals, two flashing wheels, the unstoppable momentum of her journey out into the world.
This fragment comes from the section "A River Runs Through It," which is in the middle of the book. It's just very much like the Thames is in the centre, the epicentre of London, and forms an integral part on our collection too. This is north side. Driving north again over Blackfriars Bridge, across Thames, above Fleet, compelled back to the source. Mary Kingsley is quite a famous explorer, and she was exploring the world at a time when women just did not travel by themselves at all. Quite a lot has been written about her, and I find her an intriguing character. She was travelling at a time when women had a lot of restrictions, and she was doing stuff which we would consider automatically really to be part of a feminist movement. But she distanced herself from what was called New Woman at the time. And I wondered why that was, and if that was her way of surviving and enabled her to sneak through and be part of the male world, or if that's just how she felt and she was a complex character. Mary Kingsley arrives without a husband, dinner party, Highbury, 1893. I travel as far as I please, alone, not missionary wife, no wedding ring. In my own canoe I feel at home. Tropical sunsets beat Islington's glow. Grey rain, parents dead, dull notes to sing. Better to travel across Africa on my own. Studying people, reporting home, until freedom for all in our colonies we bring. I'll keep on travelling afar alone. My own canoe, no husband, alone. New woman? It's not a suffrage thing. When I travel upstream, I feel most at home. Strong roots pull me to London loam. Frighten off rats with the monkey under my wing. Male-only science? Ha! I'll break in alone. High collars, petticoats don't make it easy to roam, but discovery, learning, moving are my thing. So I'll travel as far as I please, alone. Just as I am, I feel at home.
The next fragment I'm going to read is from the section called Deeds Not Words. Woke up to find I'd lived here half my life. Felt the pull of community. Began to dig. Began to sow. And when we started this project, London Undercurrents, I knew very early on that I wanted to write about Charlotte Despard. There's a street on the estate where I live which is named after her, And once I found out a bit more about her, I found her such an amazing and inspiring woman. She was a wealthy widow who, in the late 19th century, moved to what was then the slum of Nine Elms. And she became radicalized by what she saw about how the people in the community, the situation, the circumstances they had to live in, and their struggles. And she used her wealth in very progressive ways, such as, for instance, providing free meals to school children, because she realised if they were starving, they couldn't learn. So this is way before free school meals were a government policy. And but trying to write, she was also a suffragette and one of the first women to stand for election to Parliament in the general election of 1918, by which time some women had won the right to vote. I decided to write, because she had such a varied and full life, which was a bit overwhelming. I decided to write from the point of view of a woman in Nine Elms who knew Mrs. Despard and had benefited from some of the initiatives that she put in place. What's Mrs. Despard ever done for us? A Nine Elms woman speaks up, December 1918. Boots for our barefoot sons. The Despard Boys Club, what saved my Alf from too much mischief. Our Catholic Mothers Group for tea, chit-chat and nutritional advice. Soup kitchens when the men were laid off, on strike or called up to war. Milk puddings for the little ones. And now, at twice my age, she stands for Parliament to fight our corner there. Husbands, sons, we'll chivvy you to the ballot box. We'd vote for Mrs. Despard, if we could.
This fragment comes from the section Deeds, Not Words. Visitor, the ugliness of the Holloway Road is mine to slate, but don't you dare say anything bad about it. Arguably one of the ugliest buildings in the area is the Holloway Prison, HMS Holloway Prison, which has now been decommissioned and is being turned into flats. Through researching our project, I discovered that several key suffragettes were in prison there during the time of the Cat and Mouse Act, which is when the suffragettes were force-fed due to the fact that they were going on hunger strike, and it enabled the governors to stop women dying in prison and to make it look like they were doing their jobs, but it took them to the point, almost to the point of death, and then they would give them a respite. They'd actually send them home and then they'd bring them back into prison, and the whole process would start again. Cat and Mouse, Holloway Prison, 1913. They wait for the bruising to fade from purple, green, yellow to white. For elbow marks rammed into rib and shin to fade. For a pinioned chest made free of corset to cast off knee welts. For gums to bud skin torn by metal jaws. For cheeks to hide histories of hands that forced open a mouth to gag on rubber pipe. This waiting affords me respite at home, soft boiled eggs, a glimpse of headlines. Then they'll start again. But we, my sisters, we will wait no more.
Hello everyone and welcome to Wandsworth Literary Poetry Week. I hope you enjoyed the performance from London Undercurrents that you've just seen, and I'm here today to welcome Hilaire and Joolz today with me. Hello.
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 Hi, and thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being in here with me. I'm so used to saying coming because everyone comes to events.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you very much for your great reading of your poetry. So all the poems come from one collection that you had created together. How is it to work together on something so personal as a poem?
It was quite easy, I think, because we'd been talking about writing something together for possibly a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we kicked around some ideas of what we'd like to do, and we came on a very strong theme that we both, well, themes that we both were very strongly and passionate about. And then it kicked off from there. But we didn't write any of the poems together. It was only when we got to the final stage of like editing, and we were being mentored by Jacqueline Safra, that we started really editing each other's work. And that was quite a long time down the line, wasn't it, Hilaire? So yeah, to begin with, we wrote, well, all the poems are written separately, and then we shared them. And Hilaire wrote the first poem, and she set the bar very high. She wrote an amazing poem. Once she'd written that, I thought, wow, well, I need to do something. It wasn't, you know, competitive, but I thought, wow, this is going to be amazing, and I need to do something of a similar standard.
Yes, I think because when we were talking about how we wanted to work together, and I was working with someone else already under a kind of pseudonym, right? Actually, you know, writing a piece together. So I felt I wanted to kind of keep our separate identities in the project with Joolz, and but we fed off each other in terms of themes and approaches to poems. And Joolz set a challenge to write a short poem and also to write in form, which I think particularly me, but both of us perhaps earlier on weren't writing in more stricter poetry forms. So the collaboration was there in terms of the ideas and how we approach the material, and later on, yes, in terms of giving constructive feedback and helping each other to hone our poems so they were the best they could be. Yeah, rather than actually writing one poem together. Maybe some time down the line we'll try that in a different project.
Yeah.
But how do you edit each other's poetry? Because I thought always that poetry is such a personal thing. How we say, no, this is exactly what I meant. Is it about the sort of like to make it more, to make it better, or to make it more sort of like understandable for everyone?
Some of the feedback is really about trying to sometimes to bring out what it's good to have a separate pair of eyes looking at a poem. What you might feel is quite obvious in terms of what you're trying to convey is maybe not. So that partly is to kind of help to get to what the core of the poem is, what you're really trying to say or convey. And so another pair of eyes can help you to do that. And then there might be just things about saying, oh, perhaps, you know, do you really need, you know, 3 adjectives? You only really need this one. Or so it will vary between poets and the poems, but it definitely does help having another pair of eyes looking at the poem, and that it helps to bring you to look at it, you know, rather than think, okay, that's it, it's finished. Set it aside, come back, look at it again, and think about whether, you know, you can do some editing yourself.
And what I really loved about your poetry is obviously the fact that this is about women and forgotten voices, and there's never not enough, never enough voices of women that should be heard. I particularly liked Hilaire. I particularly like your poem about the ladies cycling in the Battersea Park. That was a good one. It's one of my. How did you? Because I wanted to ask you about the research. Do you research your poems, or do you just go on and just write about something you've heard about ages ago? Or how does it work, Hilaire? How did it happen with that poem?
With that poem, it was through, yeah, I mean, all of the poems in the book are based on research that we've both carried out. That was a really big element of it. And so I came across, I think it was a small local history book from the library, you know, Wandsworth Pastime, something like that, where it mentions very briefly a cycling craze amongst women in the summer of 1895 and them going to Battersea Park. So that was the kind of the seed of the poem. And then I did more research about, you know, online, finding articles with more detail about that cycling craze, and also the movement for rational dress, which happened around the same time, which was about, you know, saying, well, you know, women need to be able to wear clothes that are fit for purpose for what they're doing. You know,
trousers.
Trousers
Yeah.
would be good for starters.
Mm.
I just always try to imagine myself, the women on bicycles and the old bicycles with the dresses, with the, you know, with such a constraints and stuff like. Oh, it's a brilliant view that, you know, finally we get to explore the sort of how it looks like to try to new sport as a woman.
Mm.
And Joolz, do you have a favourite poem in this collection at all?
Oh, favourite poems. That's quite difficult.
That was a hard question, isn't it?
I am proud of Permitted to Play, about the little girl who wants to play football for Arsenal. Because I never thought I'd write a poem about football, firstly. And the form I'm proud of, because it's written in 3 stanzas, 4-4-2, which is like the format of football team. And also just highlighting the things that have changed and things that have stayed the same as well. So now girls can play, women can play football, and it's on the TV, but there's still a long way to go. So it's sort of bittersweet feeling of things have changed, but also stasis, things are staying the same. So I'm quite proud of that one.
What I liked about this poem is the fact that, you know, it's about such a, I don't know, not necessarily mundane things, but it's not sort of what the poetry was supposed to be about, if there is anything like, you know, the poetry is supposed to be about. So what I loved is about the fact that your poems are not about feelings and basically the womanly matters. It's about the natural, normal things around the life, and that's what I particularly liked about it as well. Especially about the lady who's going travelling. Oh, gosh, I forgot her name now.
Mary Kingsley.
Mary Kingsley. There you
Yeah.
go. Yes, and I like that. How did that come about? Did you research her as well?
Yes, I'd had heard of her because there's quite a lot written about her, but I always find it fascinating how it has changed massively. Potentially, probably is in my lifetime, how, you know, women go off with a wheelie case for the weekend or go off travelling, and we think nothing of it. But that's not always been the case, and it still is dangerous for women to travel alone. Some countries it still just would not happen. So yeah, I wanted to write about women travelling alone, because and she was particularly fascinating because she distanced herself from anything to do with feminism or to do with like the cause of women. Yeah, fascinating woman. And I to go exploring in like really buttoned up clothes, you know, no Gore-Tex or lycra, nothing. Yeah, nothing that's stretchy or breathes. You know, just these massive petticoats. But you know, she got on and did it, and it's just an amazing person.
Do you both think that your collection, being the stories of women, is basically feminism in a poetry form? Hilaire, I think you mentioned Hilaire. I think you mentioned being a feminist, and is that your main reflection on this collection?
Absolutely. I think it was one of the things that we both very early on kind of identified as one of the things that we shared, was being happy to call us, you know, proud to call ourselves feminists. And I think at that time, so we're going back, this is like probably 5 or more years ago when we really started talking about it, that there had been a phase when it was like, oh, feminism is over and stuff, but actually it's still so important and relevant right now. So yeah, it's definitely a thread, a vital part of the collection.
And during the time that we were writing it and putting it all together and being mentored, the Me Too movement and the women's marches, global movement came about as well. So yeah, it does definitely, we feel that there's so much more to do, and that you can't shy away from the word feminist. It's a very positive word. There's nothing negative about it at all.
Yeah. And so feminism is one of the things I picked up from it. And the other one was, is it a class divide as well? I think, Hilaire, in your poem about the bicycles, you write about you talk about the some of the women who are serving the well-to-do ladies trying this new pastime, which is so completely out of reach of other women as well. So what are the other poems like in your collection?
I guess a lot of them are probably about poorer and working class women, but not entirely. So I think Mary Kingsley was quite a privileged background. She had money from her parents, is that right, Joolz?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Charlotte Despard, well, I'm not writing from her point of view, but she was a wealthy widow. So it does it's not entirely, but I guess some of the poems will reflect the as well as the, you know, a feminist angle, that the differences that particularly with the cycling one. Yes, I knew I wanted to write from both perspectives, the richer women who were able to afford the bicycles, and then the young woman, working class woman, serving them teas and pastries or whatever, you know. So recognizing that yes, this was liberating for some women, but at that point not all women. That was still to come.
Yeah. And also what I like is the fact that it just reaches the history. But how did you do the research on your poems, and who to choose? Because your book is divided into north and south. So obviously, Hilaire, you're on the south, and Joolz, you're on the north of the river, which is obvious divide for everyone. And on any Londoner, when we say, you know, oh, you know, it's north of London, so we know it's not where to go. Sorry, I'm from the south, and I'm like, nah. I'm
outnumbered.
So, how did this whole idea about the river and dividing up in the north and south came from?
The river, well, is a central part to London life. Yeah, so there is a river in the centre of London, and you can feel that there's water in London. There's hidden rivers under the ground, and it's a big divide. But each side, people from each side are drawn to the river. We're both drawn to it. We've met many times at the South Bank to write our poems as well. And we wanted to have a tribute to that. So I think it might have been Hilaire who drew a line drawing of the Thames that we have in the sections in between. So at the beginning of the sections, like we were saying, we have these fragments which are our own voices, and Hilaire had drawn this little drawing of the Thames, and so it felt very much like, yeah, that's got to go in there. And you can see it on the pages. When you look at the pages on the outside, you hold the book up, you can see the line going through. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, you can go on. The thing is, I love the river. I love Thames, and I love how it creates this natural divide between parts of London. But on the other hand, it sort of like also connects people as well. So to me, it's like it's a strong thing about the whole collection, that it's concentrating around something like divisive, but also connecting both sides, and you know, two poets across the river. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but you know, just how I see it. Yeah. It's two of you working from completely the other angles, and approaching towards something that's, you know, that in the end unites and connects, which I thought is a great idea. And I forgot completely to ask you, how have you met? Because, you know, we're talking about, 5 years ago. It's like, well, how do people connect about this sort of stuff? Hilaire, do you wanna start another one?
So how did we meet, Joolz and me? Yeah. So we met at a short workshop, half-day workshop run by Spread the Word, which is an agency that supports London writers, and it was about learning how to perform poetry, how to perform your poetry, not as a performance poet, but really to inhabit and be able to, you know, stand up and perform your poem with confidence. So that's where we met, and sort of, I think it was Joolz who suggested keeping in touch, and we started going to poetry events together, egging each other on to go and do the open mic, and then started also meeting up maybe about once a month and doing some writing together, giving each other's prompts, but not sharing it.
No.
Is it natural now to sort of like work together? Because obviously you finished sort of working on that one collaboration. Do you still share your poems? Do you still work like, you know, just, you know, what do you think about this thing I've wrote and stuff?
We haven't, no.
I should not have asked this question.
No, it's quite interesting because it did take us a long time to share with each other and to feedback on each other's poems, and we we've both got very distinct styles and different things that we're passionate about outside of this project as well. So no, we share each other's successes and failures though too. So like if we say, oh, I've sent something off here, oh, I got a no, or I got a yes, and this is, I've got a short story out or a poem here. Yay, this is brilliant. So we share that part, but we know the writing. No,
I think
poets are
such a long time.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, all right. Okay, so going to close to our short chat. Could you tell us where our listeners, readers can find you online?
You can find us online at Holland Park Press website, and that's our publisher. You can find us on Twitter. I can't remember our Twitter handle.
That's fine. It will be all below.
We have a WordPress blog as well, which has more information
also
about.
Shall be linked.
Brilliant, thank you. That has more information about the research. Great. It goes way back. Has bibliography on there as well, linked from our book. You can find us individually on Twitter too.
All linked.
Yes, linked. And maybe at a venue near you as soon as we can.
Yes. I forgot to mention, we were supposed to be seeing you in May this year in Wandsworth Libraries for the Heritage Festival, and obviously, well, has sadly been cancelled, but hopefully next year.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if our listeners, readers of your poetry would like to see you, hopefully this is going to be coming next year near you. Okay, thank you very much for this chat, and really enjoyed talking to both of you, and good luck with your book, which still goes strong, and and you continue talking about it, and good luck with your personal work as well. Start sharing it together again. You had a break now. And thank you everyone for listening to this chat. I hope you enjoyed it, and please remember you can always borrow this book from our libraries, which are now partially open. Yay! And you can borrow it from the libraries. Just check our catalogue. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. Bye.